Alrighty. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fraud stream for 0.6.2. Glad everybody could make it today. We have quite a few new faces here that are just joining us for the first time in this fraud stream. I suppose I'll introduce everyone. Are we getting footage?
Should be. I waited a few seconds to swap the scene on the stream.
Here we go. All right. We're all in action. All right, so I suppose I'll go ahead and introduce everyone. First off, we have Game Dungeon, one of our programmers. If you'd like to introduce yourself. They don't really have a mic. Next up, I have here Layden, our team lead programmer, and driving force behind most of their prototypes. Well, really all of their prototypes.
Yes, hello. I was just getting the music bot back. Once again, we've had pretty quick stream setup time because once again I didn't have much time before the stream, so a bit hectic. But well, I guess I'll say my usual thing that I'm the program and team lead and do stuff like code reviews and ensure the game code stays good quality. We'll be working on it for very many years. And of course I work on various features myself, like I did all of the prototype work for this release.
Thank you, here, Layden. Next up, we have Hyperbolic Hadron. If you would like to introduce yourself, assuming you have a mic.
Hello, I'm new here, new programmer, here to work on the world generator. So you probably won't be seeing too much from me for a while, some long-term development, but regardless.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it. Next up, we have, and forgive me, Leonardian. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
I was curious how people were going to pronounce my name. I pronounce it Leonardian. I'm a new programmer on the team. This is my first time on the Drive stream, and it's pretty cool. I've done a few miscellaneous bug fixes for the game so far.
All right, thank you. And finally, we have Revolutionary I'm kidding. Film.
Thanks, Buckley. I've been off the team for probably like a year now officially, but Ike was here to provide some noise on the stream because it looked like the stream might lack noise.
Thank you.
Always nice having more people on the stream.
I'm not even a chat bot.
Yeah, we keep telling him he's retired, but he just won't stop calling. Can't get rid of him.
Well, you never cut my pay, so I feel like still gotta work the same amount, right?
Alright, well, that was introductions out of the way. Got a bit of an ensemble here. Again, lots of new faces. It's always good to see that in this team. So, in this update, we've mostly gotten a lot of prototype work out of the way. If your Elena would like to elaborate on just what he has gotten done, we've got quite a few stages.
Yeah, hang on. Let me get the release notes up. Actually, I can close the release checklist as it is complete now. So yeah, prototype. So in 0.6.1 the prototypes ended when you became a few spheres that were moving up and down underwater, but now you can move onto land. Then you can get a brain to become aware and awakened, and then you can do some basic crafting, collecting resources. There's an inventory screen. After you've collected some very specific resources, you can build a society center and use that to found a society. So you can move to the society stage. And then you can even place some buildings there, research one technology, and finally get to the end of the prototypes, which is the industrial stage, which has just a placeholder city graphic in it. So a ton of prototype work has been completed. And for next release, I think I can finish all of the rest of the prototypes. So the next release, everyone might be surprised to see the Ascension stage.
All right, thank you here, Layman. Hopefully I'll continue to remember to actually unmute myself. And I see we got a new person that just joined us, Nagarath. Nice to see you here. This is our outreach.
Oh. Good to be here.
I'm sorry?
Yes, it's good to be here with a new release. It's great.
All right.
At least to me, you sound like a robot, so, and pretty badly like that, so couldn't actually hear what you said.
I had a bit of a mic problem.
It's definitely wrong. I'm to be doing or something.
The only word I caught was wrong, and I love that.
I heard like Windows something, so I think we can blame Microsoft for that.
All right. Right. Where were we? Yeah. So that was prototypes. We didn't get too much in the way of tangible features done beyond the prototypes in this release, but we do have a lot of cool things such as the new backgrounds. I'm sure you've seen in the not at the blog post posted. We got some beautiful works made by a returning developer, Curtit, if I'm pronouncing that right. And these are fully animated backgrounds that'll greet you when you start the game. Now we have heard that they can be a bit performance heavy if you have a more older computer, so do be warned.
Even pretty new non-gaming computers will be struggling quite a bit.
What do you think we could do to fix that?
Well, I opened an issue about that if the menu performance is really bad, the game would ask the player that, do you want to disable these features?
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, I got 14 FPS on my test Mac Mini, so that definitely wasn't very good. I didn't dare to test on my Windows 7 testing laptop at all, so that might be less than 1 FPS, I don't know.
I see.
Anyway, with Steam dropping Windows 7 support next year, I think we can do that too, so.
So aside from that, another pretty big feature. So we actually had a rework of how the membrane generation works. It's a lot less slow. Could anyone explain just how exactly that's come to be?
I guess I can try to say something since I did that. I reworked the mainframe generation code somewhat and made it a lot more optimized. So now mainframe updates don't cause lag spikes anymore. So that's very nice for pixels, for instance.
Thank you for explanation. Is there anything else I'm missing? Let's take a quick glance at the patch notes, shall we? In the meantime, is there anything someone would like to bring up that they're really excited about? I see Game Dungeons mentioned icons. We did get quite a few icons for some parts and such. I do not have them on hand, however.
Do you mean the patch notes?
Oh, no, I mean the icons that
Uh,
Game Dungeon was mentioning. Let me dig through my downloads folder. I'm sure I have them. Ah, someone else has just mind. I think that was Nagarath for a moment. Oh shoot, I do not have them.
You want to see them? You got to play the game,
There we go, Game Dungeon. Thank you.
or not.
well, these icons aren't in the release, but if
We do
there's
have new.
if there's
We do.
someone who wants to do some programming stuff that's easy, these new fancy icons would be put in the game pretty easily.
We do have some new icons for the Vortex Cilia, the that thing. There's a couple of new organelles that we added that I just remembered. The Neothyroid and the Accents, which have their corresponding icons and models. And again, I'm afraid I don't really have that on hand at the moment.
Is Vortex Cilia the accepted term, or did you make that up just now?
I don't recall exactly what we're calling them. That's just what came to mind.
Pulling Cilia is the upgrade name that I used, so
We might be watching development live right now.
well, I mean, I'm not going to change the name unless someone comes up with something actually pretty good and also does the work to change it.
Oh, I see. My just off the top of my head name's not good enough for you.
It's not better than my off the top of my head name that I came up when needing to write the code for it.
All right. Well, so here, Lena, you're the person who implemented the Neofibrils and the Accents. Could you explain to our viewers just what exactly those parts do as of now?
Well, only one of those actually is going to actually do anything. The myofibril will be used later once we have actually muscles in the multicellular states to like desiccate what kind of muscle tissue types you have. But the axon actually in this release already has a function. Putting that in your cell type defines brain tissue for now. So you actually need to use that to be smart enough to awaken to get to the end of the prototypes.
And I noticed a lot of players replacing a large amount of accents on their cells. Is there any benefit to doing this at the moment?
No, it's just if cell type has more than 0 axons, it is a brain tissue type.
Nice. I've seen quite a few interesting cell designs. With some people have chemosynthesizing brain cells and others photosynthetic brain cells with a vast amount of accents. Alright, well, is there anything anyone would like to add?
Do I need to start making cricket noises?
Perhaps so.
Yeah, sorry,
thanks
I was doing forum tech support stuff. I was answering a question why one of our Discourse plugins doesn't return the post data that it should. I think it's
Nice.
a bug in that plugin.
Well, I suppose I'll just start listing off some of the changes we've made. So, start off. One of my favorites, and one of the more recent changes, is the ATP Equilibrium. We recently made the editor compound balance show the ATP at a equilibrium state rather than always at max use. So basically, when you look at the ATP balance bar, you're no longer seeing your organism basically consuming all of the glucose at the max rate, instead of consuming it at the rates that it needs to. So you actually see the actual rate of energy consumption rather than the hypothetical max rate that you likely will ever encounter. So now it's a lot more accurately defining just how well you'll survive. So that's pretty great. It's a small change, but it makes gameplay a lot more approachable. I wasn't quite keeping track of who exactly implemented that, but they have my thanks.
I know I had to do something similar when working on the fork, just because I was playing around with making photosynthesizers much more on the line of viable. That was when I started to notice if you just sit there in the game, at least in the version as of early 2022, and just watch your glucose level, it does not quite match the numbers, but you have to sit there and observe for like 60 seconds to see it.
Yeah. So this should go a long way in helping people understand the actual functions of their cell. Because for the longest time, a perfectly functional cell would be shown as having a net loss of glucose in the editor. When in truth, if you're just sitting around, you actually get a lot more glucose and etc. So no longer will people be misled. Alright. And another great change is the compound cloud visuals, which have a little higher resolution noise layer and bit more what's the word? Contrast? At least in the darker patches.
Well, texture. I'd say like they are not as single color anymore.
Yes, which is really great.
So the contrast change or more visibility is completely accidental. I didn't even try to do that when I was putting in the new noise texture.
It's a happy little accident. Of course, we had some spawn system changes as well. Let's see. I think I've got 2 here in the list. When the player reproduces, it'll despawn existing entities. They keep things under control. And where's the other thing I saw? I've lost it in the maze of words.
It was probably the change to the constantly spawning entities not being able to take more than like 80 or 90% of the
yes,
total.
That's precisely it.
That should help with the sector style spawning to be a bit more consistent.
Nice. I forgot to mention that the membrane will no longer simply vanish if your cell is just simply too long. So, the days of being a skinless cell are no more. If you happen to do that still, let me know.
Out of curiosity, how was that fixed? Do we have the coder here?
I did some generic bug fixes when it comes to the mainframes. That part was done. Basically, the old mainframe code started off with a square of points outside the membrane that then is shrunk to fit the membrane. But the square was small enough that sometimes it doesn't quite work with very long and thin cells. So I basically just made that square a lot bigger. So now it works with basically all kinds of cells, I think.
Thank you for that explanation. I'm very glad you've decided to work on a membrane system. It's been a bit of a scary subject for many other programmers. Not many people have been bold enough to give it a go.
Me personally, it was just that I like making big cells, and then I noticed that when they grow, they get lag spikes. So I wanted that fixed somehow, and then I kind of figured that I might as well do some other fixes while I'm at it.
Thank you, Game Dungeon. And thank you, Leonardia. Or was it Leonardia?
Leonardian.
Leonardia. Alright. Thank you. Alright. Of course, we had a bit of a couple small performance changes, such as making the digestion code run a lot slower. That is a bit of a performative system. And that's about all the notable stuff I'm seeing outside of just general miscellaneous bug fixes.
Yeah,
we
didn't get that many big visible things, but actually looking at the patch notes lengthwise, I think we did more stuff for this release than 0.6.1. At least visually, it seems to be a bit longer, the notes.
Leaves more time for more substantial changes in the future. Until we create more bugs and the cycle repeats.
Yeah, the bigger feature you try to add, the more bugs it causes. Like the new if someone notices the right-click menu for an organelle now displays a neat little animation for opening and closing, and that was accomplished with a Opus system refactoring, and that cost at least like $5. That took like 3 or 4 days to like find them all and then fix them one by one on each day. So it was a bit stressful just before the release that happened.
Such is life. Well, is there anything anyone would like to add before we move on to the next phase of the Friday stream? Going once? Going twice? Alrighty. I suppose we'll move on to the questions then. So, let us begin. Let me just pull up the old... Let's start with the priority questions right here.
They should be on stream as well now.
Good. Here we go. So, Doom Lightning. 2:12. Here are my questions. Well, let's begin. With the progress of the prototyping stages that were created in the last months, will you continue prototyping more for other stages and or add more?
I think I already answered this, that for next release I plan on getting rest of the prototypes done, so all the way to Ascension.
And what exactly remains to be done?
Well, well, for industrial prototype, I need some kind of like I think I'll steal the civilization design of how cities look on a map. So I'll steal that quickly, that kind of city name size part in some kind of UI for placing buildings in a city or choosing what's going to happen next. And I think I need to add a few building types and maybe one or two research options. And then I can add rockets, then some kind of space stage placeholder. I think I'll loan some of the main menu assets for that. And some kind of gameplay needs to happen in space. And then I can add like the building the ascension gate in space. And then maybe I'll add one or two kind of cheat tools that gate will unlock. And then basically that's it.
Nice. Alright, for a space stage, all you have to do is replace a model from the multicellular stage of that rock with a planet. And then you change the background to space, and you got it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just a naked guy floating around in space who's the size of a planet.
Yes.
Well, you
Cool.
are probably going to be a white cube. I go as far as adding some kind of movement in there.
Still begs the question of if we want to do orbital mechanics proper, or if we just want to not do that.
At least for the prototypes, that's a definite no.
We'll put in an issue to implement Kerbal Space Program.
Well, we could probably do at least 2D orbitals. Maybe, possibly, probably not. In my head, that wouldn't be too hard, but I'm also not an experienced programmer.
You and I can prototype it sometime.
Perhaps. Alright, anyway, continuing on. Next question from Doom Lightning. If this is in the plan, do you plan to add achievements? Yes, we do. Someday. Alright, number 3. For all of those who have stayed to work on the until now, what drives you to continue working on it? Right? Well, I suppose that's something that a few of us can answer. I'll start by saying that I must admit that my motivation has waned a bit, but I'm still sticking with it just because I love the concept. There's no other game quite like it out there just yet. How about the others? What do y'all think about this? What keeps you going?
Do I count as keeping going?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you are still here. So I suppose.
I mean, I gotta say, it's the people, like the Discord and the forum. I think it was a couple weeks ago that I watched someone figure out organically through gameplay what the mitochondrion actually does, all memes aside. And I mean, I don't know, it was just really cool to watch someone just actually playing with the numbers and finally getting a sense of that system of glucose to ATP to actions that happens in biology. I don't know, I love seeing people interact with that. Anything I can do to keep that process kicked and going. I like the community as much as the code, to be honest.
You know, that's a great point. Community's pretty great. It's nice just being able to interact with so many talented individuals here, all with a common purpose and goal, but also such wildly different lives.
Drive attracts the passionate, or at least the curious.
How about you here, Landon? What keeps you going?
Well, I really want to see this game actually progress and maybe complete someday. I've been here so long already that I want to stick with it until the end. And of course, it doesn't hurt that I can actually do this as my actual job. So I don't need to try to balance a full-time job and then also doing more programming then afterwards, which can be pretty hard and draining at times. So there's a real risk of burning out that way.
You'll send me that though. Get to do something you love and get paid for it too. Granted, you did say there is indeed a risk of burning out on that. Turn your hobbies into work and it might just start feeling more like work than a hobby.
Yeah, definitely, because when you actually have to work on something, you need to also do the less nice things. You have to do also the annoying parts of the project.
Alas. Okay. I suppose we got one more oldie, Nagarath, if you would like to have some input here, assuming your mic works. Alrighty. Thank you for your input. Next up, we got fourth question. Besides Patreon, technical work, or translation, do you feel the community contributes to you in any way? Most definitely. The community is a large part of what keeps us going. I mean, our translations are entirely community driven. Community is what helps find the bugs. And of course, the gameplay too. I mean, I can't just decide on what's fun or not. I gotta pay attention to each and every person playing the game and say, are they having fun? And I'm very much happy to see if you are. If not, I do my best to fix it. Because we're making this game not just for ourselves, but everyone.
Yeah, the whole project wouldn't exist anymore if we didn't have the awesome community who keeps things going. The project would have died before I heard about it. There weren't really good community members who always wanted to see Thrive succeed and continue.
It's also worth mentioning that the more you talk about Thrive, the higher the chances we get another programmer to answer the call and come help develop it. And that goes a long way. Alright, well, lost my place real quick. Hypothetical question. Come back when it's a theory. What prevents more people from joining you and helping to build the game? Is it money, time, unattractive to the idea, or something completely different?
Well, I think just not enough people know about the game. I think the idea is good enough to have enough appeal that when enough people know about it, we'll get bunch more stuff done faster.
Good answer. All right, number 6. Do you think if the idea came up that one patch could affect others if something happened to it? And I do believe we actually planned around that. I mean, one particular issue that, who was it? Name stuck on the tip of my tongue. The compound interactions. Basically, if there's a lot of oxygen generating cells in one region, it would create oxygen, and that oxygen would lead out from that region into others.
I think that
Over
was
time.
Maxonovian.
Yes, Max
And
Ovid.
yeah, so basically these are planned. Like there's been I think 3 years or maybe more an issue open on our GitHub that the Marines now should depend on the species in the above patches. So that's like been planned for years, and that compound production pull request has also existed for a few years now. So they are definitely coming at some point, but we might need more developers to want to work on those to get them done anytime soon.
It's one of the things I'm looking forward to, that and environmental adaptations. There's a lot we could play with when things like heat actually matter. But balancing it is a headache, to put it simply. Anyhow, I suppose last question from Dune Lightning. How complex or precise do you want the tissue editor in the late multicellular stage to be? In my personal opinion, as simple and deep as I can get it. We want it to be approachable. We don't want someone to enter the editor and at some point just start designing every individual part of their liver. We want it to be approachable and understandable for even the most unfamiliar person to the realm of biology and anatomy. And it can be pretty difficult to balance that with the complexity that we are aiming for. But we'll see what we can do.
I want to see how far we can take things with the current cell editor. So I think starting off with a simple design that can reuse basically all of the code is much better. So starting off with what we have now, just adding more organelle types, or maybe some kind of system where, depending on where you place some cell type that does something, might be good first draft of that feature.
And that's a good idea too, because you'll want to reuse as much as you can to maintain that sense of familiarity with the player. Oh, suppose that's a bit. The rest of it. Is there any more kind of priority questions?
There's one more, but maybe we take the first chat question before that.
Sure. Alright, what was the first chat question? Game Dungeon, if you don't mind letting us know.
It's already posted.
Ah, I see. Okay. Are we getting a cinematic mode? I'm not entirely familiar with what that would be.
Well, if someone wants to add one, yeah. Also, like some kind of aquarium mode. Like, that's also possible, but someone will need to do that.
Didn't Oliver get some kind of really simple mod for that?
Yeah, there's a mod that kind of does that.
It's still available on the Steam Workshop, but I'm not entirely sure if it works in the latest version.
Yeah, someone would need to test it.
I'm sure it does. We haven't really changed anything that I think would break it, but I don't know for sure. All right. I guess I'll answer a couple more questions before priority. Elon Blue. How species living on other species work? I don't want to think about that right now. That brings to mind a parasitism.
Yeah, that's not on the part of primary gameplay, so we don't need to think about it for the next 2 decades. So
we try to keep away from the more divergent paths of evolution of biology, just because we want to get the main path all bricked in and paved and nice and pretty before we start creating more options of life.
Yeah. Even now with the prototypes, I've seen some people complaining that why are we getting all of the prototypes now? Just do the microbe state. So I think the similar kind of criticism would apply to also doing the alternative paths through life instead of making the primary path really polished and all the way through the game.
And one more question from Elon Blue before we go back to the priority. How is the current idea of how I cannot speak, goodness, muscle tissue will work? Huh. So, really, in the designs I made, I don't know what the consensus is at this point, but my original idea really was just that muscle tissue would be put in a body part, basically just decide if the part can move or might not. So if you put muscle cells in a limb, you can move the limb. Otherwise, it's just kind of like a dangly part on your body.
Kind of similar to that, like from the technical implementation side. My idea is that basically because each meta ball is connected to a parent, the editor would allow you to select that connection and say that that's not like a rigid connection, that is actually a joint. And then at that same time you would specify the muscle type there.
Sounds good to me. All right. Going back to priority from Blackjack Psych. What is your favorite video game? Parentheses S close parentheses. I can't really pick favorites. That's kind of hard, you know. It depends on the mood.
Yeah.
The latest ad.
Yeah, it gets harder as the years go on. But I mean, if I had to pick my all-time favorites, I'd say things like Gmod and Minecraft and probably some others. And well, I recently played Elden Ring and that was very good. So I mean, that's the difficulty, because when you play new really good games, like you want to put them on your top list, but are they all-time best games if you just played them like recently?
I think the closest to an all-time favorite would be Spore for me. I know my childhood was, as a kid, I was absolutely smitten with that game. Despite my grievances with it, it was actually a good game. It still is. Especially the Galactic Adventures expansion. I had a lot of fun with that. Other than that, lately I've been actually playing Unturned, humorously enough. Trauma's a good one too. Does anyone else have some favorite games they'd like to mention? Quite the silent folks.
Yeah, should I try to... I've actually played Gmod, so am I the most qualified to answer that second question?
Oh, I didn't even see that question. That's funny. I've never met the Gmod admins myself, even though I have played the game. So I'll leave that to you.
Well, I also aren't very big in like multiplayer games, or at least when I played Gmod, I wasn't playing on a bunch of servers, but so I don't really know. But well, I think it applies to any game with community servers, that some servers are run by really incompetent people who are really bad admins, and there are some really good servers that have gotten really good luck in getting the right people together to manage it and have it be a really good experience. Kind of like how really good game designers can make even an average game really good, but then if you have a good basis but you don't have the design managed right, you can end up with a disaster game.
Oh, what's this soundboard? Huh. That's cute. I didn't know that was the thing. Well, then there's your crickets.
Yay, I'm redundant now.
I'll leave you to control the crickets at your leisure. You're in charge of the crickets.
I'm not sure I want my only job here to be mocking you guys.
Alright, well, that was the last of the priority questions. I suppose we'll move on and kind of switch between both the chat questions that we have left and our forum questions. So, starting with the chat. Well, no, let's start with forum first, since we already did some of the chat questions. From Mr. Mustachio, have there been any parts of developing the game that you have found fun? And if so, what was your favorite? Oh man, that's kind of hard to pick too. I mean, the fun thing about game design testing is I basically just play the game when I'm working on it.
I loved watching that Iron Rock exploit people found in the Pulling Cilia.
Oh, yes, I love that one.
Being tangentially involved with writing it, I always love making something, giving it to intelligent human beings, and watch them ruin my creations. I always love seeing people interact with tech, and this project and others. So that was really cool, seeing the little, like the little iron rocket trails as these stupid little cells break the third law of motion to propel themselves at supersonic speeds. Loved
It is
that.
beautiful. Have you seen the exploit where it's in multicellular stage? If you give the little slime jets to a large amount of your cells, you can go at hypersonic speeds. Not sure if we ever patched that.
Is that an exploit, or is that just a very specialized build? Because that's what slime jets are supposed to do.
I mean, I don't know if they're supposed to break the sound barrier, but
Oh, we'll need to implement a sound barrier.
yeah, it's fun to see all the thorns of emergent gameplay, intended or not so intended. What matters is people are having fun with it until we fix it. Have fun while you still can. Alright, next question from Jordan Rodriguez. I wonder if there will be some different cellular motions based on amount of cytoplasm added. Like, I'm guessing they mean something like pseudopodia or like something like amoeboid movement or...
That's my only guess.
Or another, I wanted to add pseudopods as a feature of engulfments with membranes. Maybe you have to look back on that with fresh eyes in mind. Yeah, I can't exactly say if they'll be strictly planned. All right, let's see. Ryza has asked, how are you going to develop the progression of traits for animals in a multicellular stage and aware stage? Like, I'm guessing... I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, to be honest.
I think this is one of those things that we'll just need to figure it out when we get there.
I suppose so. Alright, sorry we can't sufficiently answer that question. Alright, from Lucas Balnick. In the space stage, will our organisms face the effects of microgravity? I would think that could probably be one of the problems that you'd have to find a solution to, perhaps, for research. I don't know.
Early
Is
space states definitely could have that as one of the obstacles.
It would certainly be a pretty significant obstacle to colonization in a space-bound environment. It's one of the huge problems that astronauts face too. You have to constantly exercise, the constant waste and stuff. This just takes a lot of complex equipment to handle and work with. So it is indeed a pretty big hurdle when it comes to space travel as we know it. So I imagine we'd probably reflect that some way in the gameplay. Alright, let's see. Number 1 from... Oh wait, not done. Number 2 from Ryza. Will we be able to switch to a single organism to experience our city in a 3D world? That's a pretty common question that we get asked pretty often.
I actually put this in the prototype. There's a button for this, but the tooltip will say that it will be the last thing to be done once the strategy stages are complete.
Huzzah!
So everyone can just play the prototype and go and see for themselves when it will be added.
Well, alright. There's your answer. And finally, from T-Rex Attack Studios. Will you add mass extinctions? Technically, they kind of already exist. Well, more like mass population death events that kind of happen spontaneously to kind of mix up the life in your game. Kind of happens in the background, though. I imagine we'll probably have some pretty intense events in the game at some point, but we got to make sure that the player can survive them.
Yeah, we will need systems like the environmental tolerances and also the compound production changes to the environment. And then we can have the great oxygenation event.
Problem with a lot of natural extinction events is the pathway to survival is often dictated by you just being in the right place at the right time. Alright, and from Ryza. In later stages, to what extent will customization go when creating your own buildings, vehicles, weapons, etc.? Personally, I would absolutely adore a fashion editor. I just want to throw clothes on my critters. It'd be fun to clothe that kind of unique biology, but I don't know exactly the full extent of building and vehicle customization.
Well, one thing to consider is that how much playtime they add and how much the average player is willing to endure having to customize 500 technologies. I think the actual numbers of people who really want to customize everything will be really low, especially on the second or third playthrough.
Yeah,
So,
we might have
go ahead.
We might have to perhaps play around with some kind of generative issue or thing. Like, is it made of wood? Alright, let's just throw a bunch of shapes together with a wood texture, and that's your house. If you want to change it, go ahead, but otherwise, that's your default.
Yeah,
We'll
kind of like that everything will have some kind of default, but then we'll probably make most things customizable, even if it's just graphical.
The thing with prefabs, though, is... I mean, ideally, we'd have a way to basically generate buildings, kind of like we do cells. Even if it does look silly, it'd allow you to at least kind of differentiate between different cultures in your planet. Like, different building styles and such would definitely be cool. But that's something for another day, I suppose, if we see if that's possible.
I've been looking into this topic a little bit to go along with the world generation. And I think it's pretty possible to do. There's lots of good-looking tech demos that do some sort of procedural building generation. And there's a lot of editing that you could expose to the players so that they can sort of tweak and have their own cities generate their buildings in a specific style almost. So I think it's definitely possible.
Fascinating. We'll have to approach that subject again sometime in the future. Alright, let's see. Let's see. There we go. Question from Jordan Rodriguez. I wonder if there'll be some different. Wait a minute, I already answered that question. A little further down. Tristan M. Any chance of there being merch for Thrive? And that's a subject we've actually considered and discussed quite a bit among the association. We haven't really come down to any specific decisions yet, but we have the resources, we've done our research, we have a few companies staked out that we can decide to go with when the time comes. What really matters is we'll need to actually take the time to sit down with our artists and discuss what exactly we would sell and provide.
Well, also the legal side is a bit unclear because despite our best efforts, we could not find a company that would handle worldwide sales. All of the platforms that work, they all require you to do all of the tax work yourself. So basically, if we sold 50 pieces of merch per month, all to different countries, we need to do the tax work for all of those 50 countries. So it would probably eat many more resources than what we'd get back at our scale, or the price would be pretty ridiculous. Of course, some people suggest that we just start off with something like USA, Canada, EU, sort of like that. That would be easier to start off with and then try to expand later. But still, yeah, it's pretty difficult. So, in addition to the types of merch and the art for those, the legal side of setting things up and that kind of logistics is also pretty difficult.
Good point. It's been a while, so I kind of forgot the nitty-gritty. Glad you remembered. All right, moving on. From 31415. Number 1. What are your plans for late multicellular plus stage prototypes? Will they be upgraded further or left in current state until the later stage is worked on?
I guess I need to answer this, and my answer is basically I'll leave all of the prototypes like they are. I'm not going to touch them unless they actually break and prevent you from getting to the later prototypes. That's the whole point of them, that I don't need to spend a ton of time trying to get them to be good.
Good answer. Number 2, when do you think the 0.6.x release era will end? Do you have a few set goals we want to accomplish before then?
Well, we have the roadmap, so I'd say there's a good chance that next year we'll be able to finish off all of the roadmap items for that.
Right.
0.6.
Huh?
I'm just saying with the finish all of that, I assume that means 0.6, and then you have your 0.7 release.
Yep. Alright, from Lucas Baumwick, this is sociality stage. Will there be a reputation system in order to become leader of your species or just city? At this point, the player isn't necessarily a single individual anymore, I don't think. So I'm not sure if we'd really want to do that. Hello,
Yeah.
John.
Kind of depends what direction we take the stage, but some kind of like rebellion or something like that, parts of your species splitting off is I think quite a few people mention things that they'd like to see related to that, so I think we'll at least consider those points, that not all of your species is always mind controlled, so some of them might rebel against you or something like that.
Fair enough. I suppose in a way we could do it like Stellaris does and Basically, it's different factions that determine the outlook of your civilization. They can kind of fight amongst each other, but if one wins out over the other, that's just who you are now. All right, where were we? Right. What microbe stage features do you plan to change or remaster before 1.0 comes out? Oh boy. There's a lot. What to start with? Personally, I just want to see terrain in the game. Something that prevents you from going straight forward for hours on end. And I want you to just be able to come upon, like, a wall. Like, oh, a wall, and actually have to go around it. That would be pretty great, I think.
What's the terrain in the Mesopelagic?
Well, that would be an exception to course, and that's what would make it more interesting. The fact that you do have, like, the very labyrinthian substrate to the seafloor, and then the open sea, where you can go one direction rather another, as you prefer. I think that would be pretty great. That being said, there would be things like currents and such would make that interesting as well. Anything that would make the gameplay itself just a lot more varied and interesting in both scenery and gameplay. Things that allow you to actually change direction, think, consider your environment. It also make turning a lot more impactful. Is there anything that someone has in mind otherwise? Any big features that we probably need to refinish at some point?
I'll just say that the roadmap has some stuff to be polished in the 0.9 range, and I think we have some general bugs open that aren't on the roadmap, so I'd like to get at least quite a good portion of those out the way before we declare the microbe stage done. Because if it's a huge buggy mess, then it won't feel very done.
Fair enough. Alright. Moving on to Tadat's questions. I wonder if the background of the patches will be changed if the external environment is different. Temperature and nitrogen pressure, etc. I don't think they kind of already do. I mean, the temperature and such will... I mean, I guess barring things like cold events or such, we could possibly give it a bit more of the blue tint to it if, for whatever reason, the world is freezing over in an ice age or something, but that would certainly be more the visual choice up to the graphics team, so if they so choose.
I think that's maybe a bit unlikely because the day and night cycle, when it will finally be polished and enabled by default, like that will make a lot of the backgrounds change all the time, so adding any conflicting systems with that is probably not good.
Headed biome, we need it again. Alright, number 2. How do you think bioluminescence will be implemented? Oh, again. And why will it be needed for player or auto Evo? Such a great question. Even today, we seek answers. That being said,
we'd like to know as well, if anyone knows the answer.
We have come closer to a conclusion. We have found, at least in some papers, that bioluminescence was theorized to start as a means of oxygen control before being utilized in more complex systems. Basically, by burning oxygen using the bioluminescent system, you can kind of reduce the amount of free oxygen in your organs and basically have a bit more oxygen resistance. So as we know, oxygen is actually highly toxic to many organisms, especially bacteria and such, before they evolved to harness it instead. In fact, you'll find that some species, even today, bacterial species, are bioluminescent when they come into contact with oxygen, even if they don't really have a reason to. And that's the theorized reason. They burn oxygen and happen to just emit light as a byproduct. So whenever we have environmental tolerance, that may be the day that we have bioluminescence as well. All right. Yanira. Well, the game world being generated on an icosphere planet. Excuse me. I had to clear my throat. Will be generated on an icosphere planet, and camera movement for such world generation plans to have an implementation in one of the existing prototypes. Here, Landon, are you planning
Well,
on prototyping a map system?
No, because that's so difficult, and anyone who's tried to... Well, actually, we did get that patch random generator done, but I think the persons who did that then ended up becoming inactive after that, so it is still a cursed feature, so I don't plan on adding it, but there's a chance that someone else will implement it during the prototyping phase and it will be added, but not by me.
Great answer. All right. And a question from Jordan Rodriguez again. Another question. Will there be an option for naming a planet? I would think so. At some point.
Yeah, you can name your own species as well, so why not your planet?
Well, technically we do have different endings actually, Ethan Blue. We have the ending where you ascend, and we have the ending where you become a plant and don't do anything but plant things. And
Yeah.
then we have the ending where you go extinct.
You forgot one of the secret endings. You become awakened underwater.
Right, yes.
It's actually in the prototype right now. And it warns you that if you become awakened underwater, you are going to be stuck.
See, we already have multiple paths and endings you can take. We're a pretty revolutionary game, so to speak. All right, let's see. You look at the time. I actually have to run now. Got work to do. It was ever a pleasure. Hopefully someone can take over for me with answering the questions.
Yeah, thanks for hosting the stream.
No worries. The out. Have fun, everyone. Goodbye.
See ya.
Before I do this, I gotta play with the fun thing. I love it.
Thanks for hosting.
Alright, do we have someone ready to take over hosting the stream? I guess I'll need to do it. I was actually thinking about playing a bit of the game to show off the prototypes, because not everyone knows how to get to them, but I guess not time for that yet. I guess I'll continue reading the pre-stream questions thread. The next questions are from Cas96. The first is, will there be any additions to the upgrade system next update? And is anyone planning on doing anything for this? I guess that's maybe a no. Then I don't plan on doing that either, so probably not. Most excited about the cell stage. Next question is that. Anyone want to answer what are their dreams?
About the cell stage? I would still like to see that environmental compounds PR or an equivalent PR get done someday. I think it'd be really cool to watch your world evolve and have really just all those numbers on the screen and all those charts finally mean something, because a lot of it just isn't real, or at least doesn't matter.
Yeah, that will be a pretty exciting change that ties together very many systems. And then there's the third question, which asks, favorite part about developing Thrive. Anyone want to answer that one, or?
I want to pass to someone else. I feel like I already kind of answered the same question with the what makes you stick around.
Yeah, I guess that is pretty similar. I guess I could say here that my favorite part is when you can do a bunch of changes that are relatively easy but interesting enough to make, and you can get a lot of stuff done quickly. That feels pretty good to close a bunch of issues in a few days. Do we have chat questions?
Looks like chat questions are empty for now.
Okay, then Onk Papa on the forums ask, has the suggestion site been successful? And have any of the suggestions there been something that we wouldn't have done otherwise? I think it has been a pretty good success. I see a lot less random suggesting stuff to me or someone else on the team by being pinged on Discord, so I think that's a good improvement. And I think at least some features that haven't been prioritized have been pushed forward a lot by getting a ton of votes, and I think some stuff posted there has been things that haven't been like thought about before, so I think that answers that question. And I see we have chat questions now again. Dan54 asks, are there any plans to fix the lag issues in early multicellular soon? And well, this release had that fix where if you reproduce multiple times, the game will kill off your copies if they take up too much entity space. So we've done something for this release, and well, if I have enough time, then we'll get the microbe logic rewrite next release, which is aiming to improve the microbe performance a lot. And as early multicellular is just more microbes, then that would also benefit from that. So yes, there are plans to do that.
Those stages are really tied together.
Yeah, all about that smooth stage transitions.
And once we get to metaballs past the little sphere stacks, and suddenly all the other prototypes are going to look a lot better, or maybe worse. Actually, they might look creepier.
Well, if one part of the game looks too good, then all of the placeholder buildings that I painstakingly spent 5 minutes designing each will look really bad.
We'll set that as our graphics benchmark. That's our new concept art.
And one more chat question from T-Rex Attack Studios asking about the forbidden sentient plants. And well, I'll just say no, thank you. And I'll mention that we've gotten a new bot on the community Discord that monitors when people say that word. And since adding that, there's been only one instance where it's been more than a week between mentions of that cursed thing. So, well, if people cannot stop mentioning it, it's not going to happen ever. Yep, exactly. Thank you. And I can see that our release date is now 21:45, so we are well on schedule. Moving back to the community forums, that alien asks, will there ever be more extreme planets like silicon-based or gas giants? And well, I mean, silicon or other chemistry-based life is kind of on the board for maybe inclusion once we've got the main route through the game done. Gas giants, this is very similar to the sentient plants, because how are you going to prove that is actually possible? So that's on the community to make sure it is scientifically viable to actually do that. Otherwise, no. Then we have Medic Gaming asking 3 fish questions. The first one is, do you like fish? And
I hate fish.
The third one is, do you have a pet fish? So I guess Tim doesn't have a pet fish.
I feel like so many speculative evolution projects will have some kind of fish evolve, and there's a very good scientific reason to say that all fish everywhere in the universe are going to be the exact same boring fish shape. Whereas there seems to be nothing equivalent with land animals that just ruin the creativity.
Oh, that's interesting.
When I have to have an opinion on fish, that's the opinion I'm going to take.
So you probably then agree that the player will need to evolve into some kind of fish at some point in the game.
I mean, unless you want to go with crab life. There are alternatives.
Yeah, I guess you can avoid that, but to answer the second question is that it's kind of the intended route through the game to become a fish in the late multicellular state, so at some point you will be able to do that in the game. Then I think I saw some chat questions. Here's one from Lukas Pomik asking, will cannibalism be implemented? And well, the simple answer is that yes, once some drawbacks can be designed for it and someone writes the code for that.
Right now we have some engulf code to say you can't cannibalize.
Well, I mean, that's intentional because it would be overpowered otherwise. So it actually needs balancing first, and then we can enable it once the game design questions are out of the way. And then we have Wavro, who asked a duplicate question about the alternative biochemistries, and the answer is maybe. Then back to the forum questions, we have prussic acid asking when do you think Aware will be fully finished, and wow, I don't think I have any kind of good estimate. I'd say maybe 8 or 9 years. Oh, Game Dungeon comes to the rescue. Yes, before 2145. That's a very good estimate. We can definitely, or well, probably if Drive doesn't die off before that, we'll make it. Then the second question is asking about the behavior system. How will it work? Will it be like block coding? And well, there's been some concepts that you select some kind of what do you call it? Some kind of signals or like events. I can't remember the biological terms for these, but basically some conditions and then you define what happens. Like that's one of the possible types of behavior systems that might get added to the game. And then the third question from Rosic Acid is that will there be a system for pheromones / other communication chemicals? And the answer to this is surprisingly, it is already in the game. The signaling agents model some communication chemicals, and it is planned that it will interact with the behavior system so that members of your species don't always have to follow them, and that AI members of your species will use them at some point in the future as well. Then a chat question from Dylan Sheetay. Are there plans for fungi or just general subtrophs? And well, I don't know. Maybe someone has thought about that, but that's once again away from the main path through the game, so it's not a high priority to try to design that. I guess if we want to model decomposing properly, we'll need to add those to the game.
Luckily, you can do decomposing behind the scenes for the most part. No one's watching the soil to make sure the dead wood breaks down correctly.
Yeah, I suppose so, but if we want to be accurate in our modeling, we might want to make like decomposing stuff to be a food source, and then Auto Evo could come up with some fungus-like things.
Ask us in 20 years.
Yeah, that's a good answer to many of the questions that get asked. Then on the forums, Centarian is asking, what new features do you plan on adding in each update? This is actually pretty easy to answer. That we have the roadmap, and for each release we'll have a release planning thread on the development forums. 0.6.3 will be, well, I guess I'll make the thread tomorrow so we can start thinking about it. But anyway, the answer is check the roadmap. The second question is that, are you thinking about adding a behavior cell piece of some sort? One that allows you to edit cell behavior in a more complex way. Mm. Well, I don't think we'll lock it behind a certain organelle. We might make it so that if you get the nucleus, you can specify more advanced behaviors or more of them. And then the third question, can we get a vortex that sends you to another biome? Well, I don't really know. Well, this would be a pretty big design thing, and it would also mean that you might die once we get all of the environmental tolerances thing done, so this kind of sounds like a possible feature, but still it would need quite a bit of design, and I think we can live without this feature. And then Centaurian actually asked more questions, but we have a limit of 3 per person in this general questions thread. The VIP patrons were allowed to ask more, so we'll skip those rest of the questions here. Then do we have chat questions? I guess Non's answered this one toxin question that, well, we plan on reworking the toxin system to be a lot different, so that might help with things feeling overpowered. Yeah, and Game Dungeon knew that already, so yeah, we answered that question. And then we have Wavro asking again, do you plan to expand microbe stage when you finish multicellular? And well, the answer is that once we officially finish a stage, we move on to the next one. But that's just the team's main focus. People can still work on the other stages if they so desire, but we'll try to steer most of the activity to the stage that we want to complete next. So, well, some stuff will be added, but I think the activity will be a lot lower. Maybe once we have all of the stages completed, maybe we'll do another pass through all of the stages, thinking about if we can change them, but that would be way in the future.
When we finish Thrive and want to go right Thrive again.
Yeah, we will start on Thrive 2 the day we finish Thrive 1, so. Then back to the forums. Here's Dan54 who was in the chat as well asking questions. So their first question here on the forums is, do you have any personal favorite features in the 0.6.2 update? Does anyone want to just nominate what they worked on? Because I'm going to say the prototypes and the few performance tweaks I did are my favorites. And maybe the 3D backgrounds. Then the next question is that in the next few releases, are you looking to focus more on the latest game prototypes or expanding the microbe stage? And for me, my next focus things are going to be finishing all of the prototypes and then trying to get the microbe stage performance changes done. But I also have a bunch of smaller things that I need to be working on. So the timing of when those will be done is maybe it's not going to be done in the next release yet, but I guess we'll see. And so far no one else has really worked on the prototypes, so I think other people will be making microbe state changes.
I have dreamed of messing with the prototypes. No promises on those dreams.
I'm pretty much here just to work on some prototypes, but they probably won't be in the main game for a while. Just be limited to working on the world generator as a side project until it's ready to be integrated. So, it technically counts.
Yeah, we'll see when more people will get prototype work into the game. I think we already answered a new mechanics question, this third one. So then there was a chat question from Lukas Pomik about the society stage, that will you be able to create religions, customs, or stories? And well, I mean, the answer is that religions are pretty much planned. The other parts, well, maybe you'll be able to customize like the customs of your species as well. So these are like probably will be added, these kind of features, once we get there at some point. Then on the forums, hey, look, it's me. I'm reminding everyone about the three questions limit there. And then we have Hexapod Philosopher asking, are there plans to have species put into particular roles so that auto-evo would determine fitness by how well it filled that role? And I remember there being some work thinking about how to automatically generate niches for species. So that's kind of still on the table, but we'll make it kind of like dynamically, that it will naturally arise those kind of ecological compartments where species can not compete with everyone else at the same time. And then a question that will auto-evo allow plant species to evolve into animal species. And well, I guess we'll look at the realism of that when we get there and decide based on that. But my guess is that as we have seen on Earth, that the lineages have diverged pretty early on. I think auto-evo will also follow that kind of philosophy. That
there's a big difference between a coding restriction and something that doesn't happen biologically, as far as we can tell. Like I was doing a refactor of the auto evo in my forked version. I mean, one of the big things I was testing was, there are a lot of kind of designs not going to happen, because our current auto evo allows some pretty questionable species to show up that, they're interesting, they're creative, I guess, but they don't really fit to any purpose. They don't really fit in a coherent niche. So I think the more realistic we make auto evo, ironically, the less diverse we might see some of those designs become, just because some species just aren't viable. Some paths are probably not biologically viable as best we know biology. If auto evo taught me one thing, it's that I don't really understand evolutionary biology, and I'm not sure anyone else does either.
At least no one who has lived long enough to be able to design a different auto-evo system.
Takes even longer than evolution.
Yeah, I guess so, but maybe at some point we'll get one of the alternative auto-evo algorithms into good enough shape to add them or something like that. But I'd really like to see the dynamic niche generation thing, that I don't want to hard code that we need to have these kind of boxes for the species to go into. That seems way too restrictive to me.
I did a Reddit with my best idea. That's all I could do.
Yeah, and I tried to understand it, but my brain melted like less than halfway through, and I couldn't really understand it.
Ooh, that's not good.
Well, I'm relying on the fact that any auto-evo system should hopefully work with the population calculator numbers, so because I can understand that and I wrote that system, so if anyone wants to replace just the population calculation part, then I'll be able to understand what they want. But like really major rework of how all of the mutations generation and all of that works, that's like someone who actually understands the whole thing will need to implement the whole thing, because I can't do that. Well, maybe if I dedicated like a week of my time to understanding the thing, maybe then I could, but seeing how no more advanced auto-evo thing has gotten completely finished, I don't think I want to spend the time at this point of development to try to do that. So still hoping that someone else will want to adopt the auto-evo system to give it the love it needs. Anyway, moving on to the chat questions again. We have a question from Malgos about has the new version of Godot helped in any way for development of 0.6.2? And well, we didn't switch to our new engine version. We are still on 3.5, so it has not helped. And actually, Godot 4 being now available is actually a bit holding back development, because the 4.0 version is clearly not suitable for us to switch to yet. 4.1, the Godot developers still haven't accepted my pull request for adding a crash dump system, so if we switched, we would be back to the old situation where if the game crashed without any errors, then we just say that, yeah, bad luck. Absolutely nothing we can do about that. But now actually the financial situation is pretty good. So if anyone knows how we can throw money at the Godot developers to get them to take our needs seriously, then please let us know, so that we might actually get to switch to like 4.2 maybe this year. Then we have Wafro asking a question about some kind of summary feature for the evolutionary tree. And I guess we could add a button to go between like a condensed and the full representation if someone wants to implement that and somehow figures out an algorithm that determines what are the important bits to show. Then hey, we almost have 4 people in this stream. As an answer to Game Dungeon wondering how many people know the auto-evo system. Like I think having written the generic part and reading the population simulation a bunch of times, I think I understand it. So we have almost all of the 4 people who understand the system in this stream.
If we can't fix it, no one can.
Well, I'm leaning more towards that no one can currently without a lot of work.
How far do you think Thrive can make it without an auto-evo system?
Well, at least the prototypes can be made. And
Maybe we can just.
a bunch
Go
of
ahead.
people say that we should add a feature to import species, so I guess we could switch off auto evo in the multicellular stage and just load pre-created species, so we could probably technically get the entire game playable and pretty polished without an auto evo system. But that would not be the drive everyone dreams about, because it wouldn't have the evolution simulation in it anymore, so we'll need to eventually figure that out.
Right back into Spore after all this time.
Yeah, that would be a really unfortunate end to the Thrive saga, to end up being Spore 2 when we tried so hard to avoid it. I think we can go back to the forum questions now. Mr. 42 asks about the transition between multicellular and macroscopic, and how cells with spikes will work, and if they become a skin type. And well, maybe I'd like to make it so that all of the cell features have some kind of impact on the late multicellular state, so you'd use different organelles to make different types of cell things. Tissue types. So maybe like spikes would turn into hair, because it's kind of similar. Actually, when translating the game into Finnish, I found that Pilus really wants to translate into skin hair. So it's already almost there. Then the next question is, how will you make animation for body parts that interact with ground? The answer is with great difficulty, and only after Nance has made the skin generation part. And how big will the player be after leaving 2D stage of the game? I'd like to say pretty much, I think, minimal scale, so that the player has many chances to take advantage of things like breathing through your skin and such, so that it will be easier. And when you scale up your species, then you'll run into new exciting issues you need to deal with. Then we have Evan Blue from the chat asking, how will you do languages or for Awakening stage and beyond? And Game Dungeon already answered that, procedural generation, and that's basically it. We'll try to generate some kind of thing to simulate different kinds of speech things. I guess that's the plan for now. When we'll get there, we might need to change things. Then forum question from Nie, very good. First question is, what does it take to become a team member of the development team?
What does it take?
Well, it takes having some kind of game development skill, be that testing, design, programming, or art. And then you can apply to join the team. I'll post a link or the page where you can read more about the process, and there's a big application form button on that page where you can press it to get info on how you can apply when you have the skills to develop a game. And well, if you join as a programmer, there'll be plenty of work, as we have 616 open work items to be done right now, and it seems for the past few years we've been accumulating more and more, so we are not going to run out of things to do.
Backlog always grows. That's a sign of a healthy project.
I'll let people people in the text chat answer these questions. If anyone wants to answer anything. Those just skipping some stuff for time. And then we have 50 gens asking about removing the behavior editor. And I tried to read that post today, but it was over 30,000 characters, so it didn't fit even in one forum post. So I unfortunately could not digest it all, so I don't know this suggestion. So all I can say is that you'll need to get Buckley or someone else on the design team to look at it and maybe comment on your ideas. For now, I already answered during this stream about what the future reward behavior editor could be in the game. And then we have one last question or set of questions on the forums from Michael Secret. And what's up with the planet generator? And well, if Hyperbolic Hadron is still here, maybe they can answer that question.
Could you repeat that question, please?
What's up with the planet generator?
Yeah, so on my end, my plan is pretty much, well, the plan was pretty much to try and really get the feel of what exactly we need planet generator for. To go through, see what all the features are. So I think I've gotten a pretty good overview of the current state of things, the current thoughts for what we need planet generator to be and do. So right now I've started some work on the prototype. I think part of it showed up on one of the dev blogs earlier.
I think I remember something like
Yeah,
that.
I've also written out some of my ideas for how to structure it in the development forums. So right now, I think I have a pretty good plan for how to go forward with this. It'll take quite some time, I think, to for the results to really start coming in. But yeah, I think right now we have a pretty good chance of getting it done. I'd say it's hard to estimate, but it could be maybe a year or so, and there'll be something pretty good to show off. Not just another clone of a generic planet generator. Because you can look up YouTube videos, and there's a lot of tutorials out there for people that create just a generic noise map planet generator. And there are different ones that are, they have different levels of detail. Now, they're all interesting, and there's a lot of good points that they bring up there. And there's a lot of papers that talk about different specific implementation details. So going through all of that and trying to figure out a good path to take has taken quite some time. But yeah, I have hope for the future of the planet generator for Thrive.
Sounds good. So there is progress happening on that, and I guess we'll see that as it gets more and more done, we'll see some screenshots in future progress updates.
I'd say on my end, it'll probably be slow at first to see, because I'm still trying to make sure I'm doing the right thing. Just I don't want to go off on random tangents and just end up with a mess at the end, you know.
Good.
So
That is
hopefully
good.
we'll do it mostly right from the start. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, hopefully that works out. Then the second question, for what kind of things thermosynthesis will be used, and well, for now it will just be used for energy. I saw someone on our subreddit making a post about how you could make some thermosynthesis multicellular life, but I didn't want to think about it too hard. And then the last question, what is happening with modding community of Thrive? And well, it's been a while since we've seen any new mods come out, so my theory is that as we are an open source game, we are actually absorbing all of the potential models into the actual team. So that's why the modding scene is a bit dead, but I think once we get much bigger, then people will want to do crazy things that won't be included in the main game, and then the modding scene will be a bit more livelier, and no longer will my example mods be like half of the available mods. And to cap it off, I want to answer Septa in the chat that how did the question thread closed and then opened again, and the answer to that is that time zones. It is always time zones, that's the problem. Well, in this case I thought that the forum would automatically close the thread at a different time than what it actually did. So I realized my mistake and reopened the thread for a bit of extra time. So that's the answer. And did we have... Oh yeah, we have that question about Godot 4 being better for developing Thrive. And Nans already answered all of the new and fancy features that we'll get with Godot 4. And of course, because a bunch of breaking changes were moved to it, so it's going to be a pretty painful experience to switch to it. And especially now as the 4.0 doesn't have a fallback renderer, so anyone with a old laptop who can currently play the game would be out of luck, so we are waiting until at least that is done. Then we'll need to really quickly do the Godot 4 transition, because that's going to be messing up a bunch of work, so no one can really work on anything else while the transition is happening, because anything will need to be redone afterwards. But well, with a really long running project like Thrive, I think we anyway need to move to Godot 4, because the 3.x releases will at some point stop being supported, so we'll need to get on the latest version at some point.
Once you start falling behind on stuff, it's just going to start to snowball.
Yeah, kind of like I read recently that the GNU image manipulation tool I won't say the acronym right now what that is, but anyway, they were using GTK2. Like right now they completed the transition to GTK3, whereas the GTK4 has been pretty much the recommended thing to use for the past 2 years, so they were like really outdated, and now they managed to kind of jump to a reasonable version, but they should have actually gone all the way to the latest one to actually guarantee future compatibility. So yeah, that's the lesson to learn, that you should move to Godot 4 before Godot 5 comes out, because that's going to be a real mess otherwise.
And that's when they shut off Godot 3.
Probably, yeah. Or actually, maybe they end up like Ogre rendering engine, where the 2.x branch is like the future of it, and they have a bunch of new features, but the 1x branch is way too popular to kill off, so they have dedicated maintainers for that, and they've basically diverged entirely what they can do.
Drive used to be on Ogre, right?
Yeah,
Way back in the day.
That's why I actually know about this. I ported Drive to Ogre 2, actually. That was my first pull request.
Your first pull request was changing the engine.
Yeah, the graphics engine to a newer version. And they actually moved from like the traditional OpenGL stuff to like pipeline objects, etc. So it needed a bit of... I actually needed to port the GUI library as well to Ogre 2.
I changed some text on my first PR.
Yeah, everyone needs to start somewhere. Actually, I was working on my own engine at the time, so that's why I actually knew about the Ogre rendering engine, and I actually ported the GUI library for that. So it was just chance that Drive happened to use the GUI library, and the rendering engine I was familiar with. And when I saw that they were looking for team members, I was like, hey, I know about their tech stack a lot, so maybe I'll look at that. And then I saw that they needed to port to the new version of the rendering engine, so I did that. And that's how modern Drive developments got me involved.
Little flukes of history. The saga begins.
We are pretty much out of time, but I really wanted to show off the new prototypes on this stream, so
I mean, we're not going to kick you off the stream.
yeah, a slight problem. I just got a random crash. I don't know why. Anyway, I tried to play Drive, but it crashed.
Game Dungeon is suggesting a live debugging stream. I'm not sure I would second that suggestion.
I actually did that one stream. I fixed a bug that I hit in a debugger. Like, it was a bug that was really hard to like pinpoint. Like, it happens so rarely.
Did you catch it in stream?
Yeah. I actually got my debugger broke. Like, hit a exception and stopped. So I debugged the thing right then. Or was it a breakpoint? I can't remember. But anyway, I did some live debugging. Well, I didn't show my screen, but the other developers tried to entertain chat while I was debugging.
You're saying I gotta entertain chat solo is what you're asking.
Yeah, right now I'll put Drive up on the stream. It kind of fits. So anyway, I'm going to do a debugging thing, and I jumped directly to the prototypes here, and looks like when my mouse is captured, it doesn't actually hide in OBS. That's pretty interesting. So anyway, someone else will maybe entertain chat while I show off the prototype. So here we are on land, and we don't have any brain, so we need to do... Oh, actually I hit a breakpoint right now. Okay, that is sorted. So
Error, no brain.
now we add some lovely actions to our cell type, and now we are 100% brain, so we'll be using 100% of our brain to awaken next. Here we are, and we can now awaken because we have enough brain power. And here we can see that if you are underwater when you awaken, you'll be stuck there. So think carefully about doing this. You will get the underwater ending this way. Anyway, now that we are smart, we unlock a bunch of stuff at once, and now we can actually interact with the world objects. So we can pick up or craft stuff with this rock. And here we make the stone axe, which is a lovely placeholder cube, and then we go up to the placeholder tree to harvest this resource. And now we have lovely cubes of wood here, which we can pick up. And as you can see, we are now full, so we actually need to drop this hand axe we made to pick up a rock, and then we can build a society center which costs 1 rock and 2 wood to start. Here we can see where we are going to place it. Right there is good. Pick up the rest of the stuff. We add the materials. Shows here what you need for it. So I think 1 more rock. Then we can finish construction. Here we are building a lovely placeholder structure I modeled in a few minutes. Then we can found a settlement. And oh, this time the bug didn't trigger. That species should or that organism should always go to the door. But for some reason, like when the orientation is off, it sometimes goes the opposite direction, and I haven't figured out the math to do that right. But anyway, now we are in the society stage, and we need to research steam power with this lovely research screen.
You're not going to build any buildings first?
You need some resources to accumulate before you can build anything, so for fast debugging I always do the research first. And here's the possess a member button, which we talked about earlier this stream. Oh, I see. The stream bitrate is once again we've hit by the bug.
Tell us about this bug.
Yeah, for some reason my bitrate is going really badly right now. And when I restart the stream, it goes back up to 5000 for a second and then goes back down.
So you get to show like 30 seconds. Oh, I'm seeing it get high quality again.
Oh yeah, it just lasts 1 second. And then it goes down. Down really low. I don't know what's up with that. But anyway, now we have enough to build a hunter-gatherer lodge. At least place one. Well, the bitrate is really unfortunate. I guess YouTube didn't actually want us to go over 2 hours this time, so.
It'll leave more to the imagination. Creatures kind of look better at this pixelation.
Nope, still just get 1 second. 1 second of good bitrate. Anyway, we got one structure built. We'll need a few of these to get the resource gain to go up.
Then the eco booming starts, a staple of every RTS.
Yeah, yep. You get snowballing really quickly once you place these, but this is just a prototype, so I'm not too worried about this stuff. Maybe I'll answer last chat question that I saw was from Evan Blue about can the AI surpass the player in the stages, and the answer is it's kind of maybe sort of a game over potential scenario that you need to watch out for to make sure you don't lose the game, because the timescales go like really small, really fast. So if someone overtakes you, what ends up happening is that you then lose the game because they invented pollution and killed you off. So it's kind of probably will be possible to lose that way, but it's not like really intended to allow the player to play as a parasite or something like that. Maybe someone will make a mod for that or something.
Space Empire from the point of view of the lice on one guy's head.
Yeah, that seems to be surprisingly popular. Okay, there was again the bit of bitrate for people to see what I did. Basically placing a bunch of stuff. Then I can make the steam-powered factory, and this just asked me to confirm that I want to go to the industrial state, which I do, so I placed. And then the camera zooms out, and for now here. So yep, that's it. That's the end of the prototypes.
For now.
Yeah, for now. Really foreboding there. My excellent writing skills.
Coming soon, asterisk, to a thrive near you.
Maybe I won't try to play anymore because the bitrate really hates me right now, so.
And we did a quick shot of the 3D backgrounds.
Yeah, probably no one could see it because the bitrate was so low.
That's why I had to tell them about it.
YouTube is actually telling me that the stream bitrate is 0, which is lower than the recommended, so. Well, OBS still says that 240 is what I'm getting, but that's not great either, so. I think, did we have like one last chat question or something? Anyone got anything more?
We got it all clear from Game Dungeon.
Okay, yeah. That was a Thrive stream then. We did all of the required things, and even I managed to squeeze in some extra Thrive playing, even if no one could see more than a few pixels. But anyway,
We have done.
thanks
Go
for
ahead.
joining the stream. Unfortunate that Buckley had to leave so early, but I think we managed at least okay. Thanks to Tim at least for sticking around, even if he is technically retired right now.
This Discord is addictive. I don't know what to say. You guys could always ban me.
and lose our one hope of having interesting podcasts when it's so difficult to get people to join.
If this stream ever dies, we can't appease the gods, and our civilizations will go underwater.
I guess with that revelation we can then end the stream. Goodbye everyone. Was a fun stream.